he had a bunch of individuals, as you would say, and I hate using this word, but from the minority community there. And he runs around in the debate stage and he says, well, I've met with the black church leaders and I've met with the Vietnamese and I've met with the Hmong and I've met with the Somali. And he just goes on this, like, I've met with them, look what I've done rampage, but he hasn't done anything for them. Where was he when he was the majority leader of the Senate, where he was actually there advocating for their communities? He wasn't doing that at all. He's using this as a campaign thing. And that's the problem with these individuals that are running for office that I'm up against, is that they're using the other cultures to try to bolster their campaign and make them look better than they are. And at the end of the day, I'm actually out doing stuff because I care. And when I'm in office, I want to make sure everybody has a voice and that everybody is represented equally. And that's the way that it should be done. And, Tim Walz is never appointed among American to any sort of senior leadership level within his organization and his administration. He doesn't even have one Hmong commissioner sitting on his cabinet whatsoever. I mean, that just goes to show you that the Democrats use these people, and it makes me sick, and it absolutely drives me nuts that they do that. And I'm sick and tired of politicians doing the same thing just to make their campaigns look better than they are. And I think Scott Jensen tried to do that. Then he met with John Thompson, which was just a bad move. Sorry, I had to throw that one out there. But it tires me. It tires me that we're taking advantage of each other. It really does.
Well, and for your olive branch to be put out to a man who has no desire to have peace, period.
Yeah.
That was the big thing for me that just really, lack of better terminology, really kind of chaffed my hide, was you're reaching out to a guy who literally wants to burn down the city of Hugo.
Yeah, I know.
That's who you're going to pander to. I know you're on the campaign trail, and so I'm sure you got things you need to do.
I got some more time if you want some more time. It's totally up to you.
What are we going to do? As let's say you're in office as governor. What are we going to do to rescue the economy of this state? Because everybody's talking about, our economy's not that bad because we have this massive state surplus, and I'm like, where in the history of the world does the state having a surplus ever equal a strong economy? And the response has been, well, that means taxes are getting paid, and that means businesses are thriving. And I'm like, okay. I know a lot of businesses that closed down during these COOF pandemic measures, and a lot of people were sitting around taking in checks from the state and not paying their rent and all of that. To me, it just sounds like we've overtaxed the crap out of people.
We have,
which is destroying the economy in Minnesota. I don't know if anybody's tried to buy anything lately. It's not just the federal level. This state has devastated our economy and devastated our buying power. What can we do to fix that?
A lot. And for one, it's theft. It's taxes are theft. The government is only supposed to take what it needs to function, and having $7.7 billion of your money sitting in their bank accounts is theft. If I went and took $100 from you, TC, without you wanting me to take $100 of it, that would be, by legal definition, theft.
Oh, we're going to fight, by the way.
Yeah, right. And then on top of that, receiving another $3.5 billion from the federal government for more COVID American Rescue Plan, Joe Biden Build Back Better money, actually puts the state in about $10.8 billion worth of surplus money. Tim Walz wants to buy votes with some of that money in the form. I can't believe he said this. I mean, this is how arrogant and conceited he is. He called them Walz checks. He wants to give out Walz checks to families in Minnesota, and that would be $175 per individual. Now, keep in mind that a majority of Minnesotans pay little to no state income tax from their paychecks unless you make over a certain dollar threshold. So Tim Walz is giving out taxpayer money to people who actually paid into the tax system to buy votes. That is where the position of the Democrats are. Really, that money should be given back to the actual taxpayers it was taken from, and it would be a little over $2,000 per actual taxpayer, not $175 per taxpayer.
Explain what you mean by actual taxpayer there.
People who actually paid into the Minnesota Department of Revenue, the tax collection system of the state. Businesses and individuals who actually paid state income tax. Not sales tax when you go buy a new TV. I'm talking tax literally deducted from your paycheck, or businesses like myself and so many others every year have to write a big fat check to the state of Minnesota for owning a business. That money needs to go back to
greedy jerks. How dare you own businesses?
Exactly. That money needs to go back to the people who actually paid the tax, because we're the ones that are carrying the burden. Not that I'm saying that there isn't burden on other individuals out there who are not paying the tax, but it's my money and it's your money and it's the people who paid that taxes money. It's not others that have been sitting at home not working, or people who are taking advantage of the system. That's not their money.
And that's who they want to give that surplus to.
Correct. They want to buy votes with it.
Yep.
They want to give that surplus to the individuals who are not productive, or the individuals who take advantage of our economic system, and individuals who do not work, and just the whole entire stem of issues that lie within our society. They just want to dole that money out to social programs and more green initiatives and more woke-topian ideas, instead of actually investing that money properly. Now, me as an employer, on March 1st, I'm going to get hit with a double-digit unemployment tax insurance increase. Now, for those of you who do not understand this, unemployment is paid by the employers, not the employees. So me as a business owner, I have to pay based on my employees' overall salaries together collectively, and then how many employees I have, a certain percentage of money into the uninsured, or the insurance fund at the state of Minnesota for unemployment.
Right.
Now, Tim Walz is going to punish small business owners and business owners across the state on March 1st, because we're responsible for paying back the $2.8 billion in debt that is owed to that fund through a tax increase. That money in the surplus needs to be used to pay off that debt that is owed to the federal government, because it was Tim Walz who shut us down. It was Tim Walz who depleted that fund. It was Tim
who bought
Walz
a $7 million building.
Yep. It was Tim Walz who bankrupted the unemployment insurance fund. Me as a business owner should not be responsible to pay that off. And that's really pisses me off. And that's another thing Paul Gazelka could have stopped in the Senate in July when he was, jamming through their omnibus budget. He could have put in there that that the state of Minnesota is to pay off the unemployment debt. So Gazelka runs around and says, no new tax increases. Well, what do you call this freaking double-digit tax increase on my unemployment that I have to pay in, Paul? And that's a tax increase that you allowed to go through, just like the $500 million you gave to Tim Walz to go bribe people with gift cards and scholarship programs for the vaccine. Because I don't know if you know this, Gazelka gave up $500 million for Tim Walz to go spend whatever way he wanted to without any accountability. That was part of the negotiation. But we have to use the surplus wisely, and it needs to get invested into programs that will actually work for Minnesotans, and not just social welfare programs to expand the scope and size of government. My number one goal is to reduce spending and literally gut the state of Minnesota as a government, as you know, and not cut, but gut, because we're entirely too large.
Oh, we're bloated.
Minnesota it's bloated. It's beyond any sort of organizational structure. It is not a well-oiled, efficient machine. It doesn't function properly, and we're entirely too big.
But you'll keep Jan Malcolm in right?
No.
Oh,
no. Yeah, I
Oh,
wanted to make a joke about that, but I didn't want somebody to cut out the sound clip and use it against me. But no, literally, if she hasn't
well,
resigned
now
by
they can use it against me. So
yeah, if she hasn't resigned by the day that I'm sworn in, she will be the first one that I terminate. I'll tell you that right now. Along with everybody, I am going to clean house, and I'm going to, on after election day, and if I'm elected, I'm going to go to work right away, building out my cabinet and appointing commissioners. But let me get back to where I was saying with the economy. We're taxing our senior citizens on Social Security still.
Yep.
We're one of the few states that are doing that. So our seniors are leaving Minnesota. We have to repeal the Social Security tax.
Yeah, people need to understand that they're taxing people on money that they've already ostensibly paid as a tax. We may not call Social Security withholding a tax, but that's what it is.
Yep.
It's money, and it's money they're not guaranteed to get back. So,
yep, we're taxing our seniors on their Social Security. Our businesses are overtaxed. It's just a complete mess. Our educational institutions are overfunded. They're abusing the money. They're not spending it the way it should. So the money needs to follow the student so we can keep track of it.
Test scores are on a massive decline.
They are. It's just terrible. We're going to have to go in and really what we're going to need to do on day one, instead of just being like, well, we're going to start getting rid of this and that. We're going to have to bring in like an outside organization to really go through and audit everything in the state of Minnesota, because there is just too much fraud, waste, and abuse internally to track down and find internally.
Yeah. Well, that's the old saying. I co-host a program called Veteran Nation, or a podcast called Veteran Nation with an individual, and we talk often about how the military talks about it investigates itself and then determines that it has found during the course of its investigation that it's done nothing wrong.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what would happen if we tried to do any kind of investigation into there again, Republican or Democrat. Any kind of investigation we would do right now would just result in us saying, or in the government saying, oh, well, we've investigated and we found we've done nothing wrong. That's it. That's what it would come down to.
Well, exactly. I mean, here's two examples. You have the daycare fraud scandal.
Yep.
Which is hundreds of millions of dollars of Minnesota taxpayer money that is being stolen and fraudulently used.
Yep.
There is a situation, which I'll say locally, where one of those organizations was just caught a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Near to where I am for that fraud. But then you also have that organization that was just picked up, the Feeding Our Future.
Mm-hmm. Millions of dollars,
hundreds of millions of dollars. And, what's going to happen with that? Probably nothing under Walz and Keith Ellison. You have Education Minnesota, the teachers unions in the schools taking advantage of taxpayer money through the school budget. I mean, look at what St. Paul School District had to do in May. They finally brought students back for in-person learning. Yeah, they were masked. That's besides the point. But they kicked them out of school early and shut school down early because they didn't have air conditioners because of the heat.
Yep.
Billions and billions of dollars are going to education, to fund education, and you can't find 10, 20, 30, a few $100,000 to equip your classrooms with air conditioners.
And school districts, even worse, the school districts are firing teachers and other personnel over things like their stance on the jab and testing, getting ready to get rid of people. They've won some. They're literally wasting money, and the union is siding with school districts on that.
Yeah. So here's the article, because that future. That Feeding Our Future is tied in with the Department of Education, by the way. So
copy that link and put it in that little chat section, and I'll share it with people.
So here's to show you how corrupt the teachers unions and Department of Education Minnesota is. The FBI warrant cites records from the Minnesota Department of Education, which reimburses organizations locally with federal dollars, showing that Feeding Our Future greatly increased its funding during the COVID-19 pandemic, going from $3.4 million received in 2019 to $42 million received in 2020 to more than $170 million received in 2021. And that money was dispersed through the Minnesota Department of Education. These people went out and bought homes and cars and all sorts of garbage with that money. If you scroll down, you can see in there, real estate, luxury items. I mean, it's just, that is the state of Minnesota, ladies and gentlemen, that we're up against. Every department, including the Department of Health.
The concern in a lot of this is government, and we've already used the phrase bloated, and I don't even like using the term government because we're the government, but and you know my views on this, you've heard me speak enough. The state has become so bloated that it's like cancer. It can't stop itself. It just keeps doing all this stuff. And people feel overwhelmed. They don't know how to fight it. They literally do not know how to fight it. They don't know what to do. And then we get these situations where now we've got a guy who's got a very public persona in Scott Jensen, who's said all the right stuff when it comes to the COOF and restrictions out there. That's all he hones in on. That's it. And everybody's just so enamored of that. And then, this is just me, you've got all these other faces running for the Republican nomination, the Gazelkas and the Bensons and stuff, which, if my personal take on it is, they're spoilers. They're meant to create a buffer between you and Jensen.
Yep.
And that's all they're doing, because they'll just throw their hat in the ring for Jensen when it comes down to it. And it's because it's the same mentality. We have to keep these people that we know, these insiders, have to stay in power. They have to stay in position because they're trying to protect. And it's the very definition of an oligarchy here in the state of Minnesota. It's nepotistic. They're all in it together. And you brought up Mort earlier, and I don't know if you saw, but I had him on too, and we talked about primarying people and whatnot. But that's one of the reasons Mort stands out, is he's not afraid to call BS. He's not afraid to call people out. You go back to his video from a couple of weeks ago where Walz comes up to offer him what, I don't know, it's a cookie or a muffin or whatever it was. And he called Walz out for, oh, you do exist. Why aren't you doing anything about Lisa Hansen? And, and everybody in the Republican, not everybody, but the Republican, oh, that's not decorum. That's the wrong kind of decorum for a member of the House of Representatives. None of this stuff is going to get fixed. This bloated, sick, cancerous functioning or lack of functioning that we have is never going to stop. It's just going to keep getting out of hand and going to critical mass until we put somebody like you, who has the moxie to call a spade and do something about it, and being willing to make those hard decisions. Have in your vocalness as you've led up to this, and you're willing to call Gazelka out, you're willing to call Jensen out, you're willing to call out the governor and Ellison and others. And you mentioned that CNN and whatever the other one was did kind of really did some hit pieces on you, and it brought in the hate. What kind of are you getting any kind of feedback from the rank and file Republicans right now, or that are like, well, I was going to vote for you, but they've said this and this and this about you? Or are you starting to hear from people saying, I can't vote for these main candidates, these well-known candidates right now? We need a person like you. What are you getting? Is it 50-50? Is it 70-30? What's
the rank and file? Are you talking like the Gazelkas and Bensons and long-term?
Well, when I say rank and file Republicans, I'm talking about the people that live in small town Spring Valley and Preston and Alexandria and Bemidji and places like that.
You know,
Because you've been all over.
Yeah, I'm not getting pushback from that so much. I'm getting pushback from a lot of the old guard, as I like to call them, that have been around forever. Those types of Republicans, but the patriot groups, I'm getting immense support from. But the Gazelkas, the Bensons, you know, they're them as candidates. They don't know how to handle me. Their brain is completely malfunctioning because I'm winning. I'm winning straw polls, right? I mean, went to Benton County and I got 63, and Paul Gazelka was the next highest one, I believe, with 37. The Arrowhead up in, you know, the Iron Range, or the Arrowhead, I'm sorry, not the Iron Range, but the Arrowhead up in Beaver Bay and Two Harbors and Silver Bay and all of that. I received 70% of their vote. Meanwhile, Benson, Gazelka, and I believe Neil Shaw all received zeros. I've won the Gun Owners Caucus, straw poll. I'm trying to remember. There's so many of them now. It's just I'm winning these things, and people don't understand how or why. Now, the reason why the straw poll result went the way it was is because Scott Jensen spent a ton of money to grow his social media fan base, and a bunch of his sycophants showed up to vote for him in the straw poll, but a majority of them aren't going to proceed on to the process to become delegates in the state convention. And one of the greatest things, or one of the most commented things I hear from people out on the trail or at events or at meet and greets or even debates, when we're all wrapped up and finished, I hear a lot of times people saying, well, I used to be in the boat for Scott Jensen, but now I'm voting for you.
Right.
And if you look at who raised and spent what, for the amount of votes I received, I spent the least amount of money to receive the straw poll votes that I did, which goes to show you that I am the candidate of the people, the grassroots candidate. Now, bear in mind, I haven't spent a whole lot of time fundraising on my campaign or making that the center focus of my campaign like so many of these other people have. I mean, Scott Jensen has literally made hundreds of videos begging people for money, which you need money to win this campaign, but this campaign isn't about money. This campaign is about who's going to do the right thing for the state and for the people. Right. And that's why I haven't made this the center focus yet of my campaign. I'm starting to change that tune now because we are going to need to raise a bunch of money going into the convention, but I'm capable of self-funding. I've already pledged a large amount of my money to the campaign as needed when I need to use it. No other candidate's willing to put out their own savings account to win this election. Right. I'm the only one willing to self-fund. And that kind of shows you why I'm into this. I'm into this for Minnesota. And it's disappointing that a lot of the other candidates are not. And I'm confident that we will win the nomination. I really am. And we'll see. But it is a process, and it's been really humbling.
So I want to ask this, and then I'll have you kind of give us some of your closing thoughts. And,
sure.
Everybody talks about, there's always something somewhere that somebody has in their history that could cause people to go, oof, I don't know. And you and I've talked about this at different events. We've been behind the scenes at several events and whatnot. So, and I'm not saying in a rub elbows kind of way. I'm like, I do not run in the same circles as Mike Murphy. But you're a man of the people and you're down to earth. Who are they going to go after to try and discredit you? And what are they going to try and discredit you with, do you think? What do you think is going to be their big, because I know you've already gotten some of that. They've gone after Lynn, they've gone after Dennis, and each one of them has their own perspective on the stuff that they've gone after them for, and you're aware of those things. The machine the old guard is going to try and discredit you. They're going to try and find some reason to toss you into the meat grinder. And what have they tried, or what do you think they'll try, and how are you going to combat that? I'm not asking you to get secrets.
Well, here's the thing. I don't have any closets. I have closets. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. Otherwise they would have used them if they would have been able to find them. And it's true. I don't have anything to hide. Otherwise I would have spoken about it already. Some of the other candidates, they've kept their secrets hidden and didn't discuss it until it was brought to light. At the end of the day, they're just going to make stuff up. And that's exactly what they've been doing. When CNN, MSNBC, the Democrat Governors Association went on their tirade against me because I was speaking about election integrity and about, man-made climate change is a farce and blah, 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 at one of the debates, which, I'm not arguing the fact that climate change, it exists, right? But America's not the one causing it. And until you hone in China and India, we ain't going to do anything about it.
Right.
So stop making, people like Al Gore, rich off of it, and stop, like lifting up heroes like Leonardo DiCaprio screaming about, the climate as he flies away on his private jet to Milan, and then goes on like a freaking 200-foot yacht. So quit that garbage. But the only thing that those organizations,
they have to do that, otherwise they can't get around the world to tell people to change how they live.
John Kerry. but literally the only things that they could hit me on, despite the fact that that their people at CNN and all those other organizations tried to dig through anything they could find on me, which is nothing. They went through and just used their playbook. They called me a racist, they called me a Trumper and a QAnon conspiracy theorist, and that was it. Because that's all they have.
Right.
And on the debate stage, none of my opponents have attacked me. I'm the only candidate sitting up there that has not had a hit put on them yet, because they have nothing whatsoever to attack me on, other than saying, well, he's just a small town mayor, or he doesn't have any legislative experience, and blah, blah, blah. And that's all they that's all they use. It's
so strange. It's so strange when you think about it. Like, we have now come to a place in the United States when it comes to voting for someone where we can only vote for a person who has earned our vote by being in an elected position that somebody else deems as a high enough position to make them worthy of the next highest position. And it's kind of like when you go to the bank when you're 18 years old and you want to get your car loan, and they're like, well, we can't give you any car loan because you don't have any credit. Well, how am I supposed to get credit? Well, you have to jump through these hoops to get credit. Well, but I can't get any of those until I have credit. And it's what they're doing with you. You don't have any credit because you're not inside politics. You're not inside baseball. You're not playing the game the way they want it played.
But I do in my own right, because I'm a business owner, for one, so I understand how
that's because you're greedy.
Economic system works, and I'm good to my employees. You know what I mean? I don't run around and pocket every piece of profit that I make, but I understand economics, and I understand how budgeting works, and I do the same thing as a mayor. I create, Michelle Benson tried to hit me on the debate stage a couple of weeks back because she's the only one that really balances, the state budget, and she's the only one with budgeting experience. And I said to her, I was like, really? Because me being a mayor, I don't create, generate, approve, authorize, organize a budget for my city.
Well, it's not the same. It's not big enough.
There's a reason why when the state puts out their economic forecasts or their budgeting proposals, the reason why they drop all the zeros off of it is because people can't comprehend all of that money or those dollars. So that's why when you see the spreadsheets and it says, like 300,000, and you're like, oh, only 300,000 for this. But if you look at the asterisk at the bottom, it's in millions or it's in thousands. It doesn't. A budget is a budget. It doesn't matter how many line items are on it. It doesn't matter how many trailing zeros they are. It's all the same at the end of the day. It's numbers and money, and it's not hard to do. It's the same thing that Minnesotans have been doing for generations within their own families, is budgeting. And if I went out and overspent beyond my means, right, I don't get to go ask, my employer for more money. That's what the government does. They just tax us more when they overspend.
Yeah, they don't even ask. They just take.
Yeah, that's why you end up with this surplus. But I mean, really,
I showed up to my employer and said, "Hey, I overspent. I went to the casino yesterday and I drained my bank account.
Another paycheck.
I'm just going to need you to give me a $30 an hour raise." It'd be like,
exactly.
"Oh, okay."
And that's what the government is doing. And I have executive leadership as a community leader and as a mayor, and I have the same powers as a governor does under the Constitution. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that your local mayors are just as powerful as a governor is at a community level. That's why you saw Jacob Fry and Melvin Carter and some of the other cities across Minnesota put in their own COVID segregation zones. And when it comes to reforming these powers, it's more than just, okay, let's strip away the power of the governor's office so he can't lock the state down or unilaterally make decisions for everybody. That reform has to be statewide. That has to be done on the county boards, the township boards. It has to be done at the city council levels.
Yeah.
Because
and I was just going to,
yeah,
I would argue from the Christian perspective, and there again, you've heard a little bit of this from me. Mayors ultimately are actually more powerful than the governor, and they have a responsibility to do exactly what you did during the COOF pandemic overreach, which was to say, here in Lexington, we're not abiding by that. I'm going to interpose myself between the governor and the attorney general, and we're going to say no, and you will not come into this town and do that, which is what I think has given you, in my eyes, has given you something that none of the rest of them can attest to, is that they didn't stand up. Even Jensen, who's been against all this stuff, didn't do what he could have done when he should have done it.
Exactly. That's why we have to reform government, not only at the state level, but the entire
at the local
level.
Yeah,
at the local level as well. When we give the power back to the people, it needs to be given back to the people. Just giving it back from the governor's office is not enough.
And the people have to wisen up and realize that it's their job to take the power back, not just sit around and wait for somebody else to come along and say, "Oh, we're going to grant it back to you."
Exactly.
I want to end by giving you the opportunity to kind of promote yourself, not a stump speech, but just to promote yourself. But I want to launch into that by this, and then I'll give you the screen. There's been a lot of talk about never again, over and over and over and over again. Eric wrote the Never Again bill, and that got, for lack of better terminology, co-opted by the conservatives, and you have been very vocal in saying it'll never happen again while you're, when you're governor. It will not happen again. And the never again, of course, referring to shutdowns and determining who's essential and not essential. Tell us a little bit about why you say never again from your perspective, and then tell us a little bit about you personally that's going to make you a far better governor than what we've seen for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, great question. So I was discussing that just a moment ago a little bit about reforming those powers. Is never again is we have to do it at an entire statewide level, not just the governor's office. That way we can hone in the power of the mayors, the county boards, the townships, everybody, so that way they can't create and generate their own tyranny at local levels. It has to be statewide reform. Never again to me means that we can't have one person ruling over an entire population for 700 days without any sort of checks and balances. And I already proven that I can do that. I gave my power back to my city council immediately when I took those emergency powers at the start of COVID, because I didn't want to be a Jacob Fry or Melvin Carter or Kim Norton in Rochester having all of that authority. So immediately gave it to the city council so we would vote on it, a lot like what the Senate and the House do. And that's exactly what was taken away from the Senate and the House, was your local elected representatives had no power or say over the governor. And we have to hone in those emergency powers, those reforms in the power of government. And people do need to take the power back, but we have to elect a leader like myself that is going to start off by saying, here, I'm going to give it back to you. Now it's up to you to take it from me, take it from the government when I say me, and use it. And, a lot of that has to do with using this, which is the Constitution. People forgot that it's a rule book for the government. It's not a rule book for the people. And we have to get back to those ideas and those mentalities and those mindsets. And I'm running for you folks here in the state of Minnesota. I'm running to save Minnesota, and I'm running for a better future for my daughter and your grandchildren and your children's children. And the powers that we give away now while we're here in this moment in time are powers and freedoms that our future generations and our children will never know existed. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. And it terrifies me. And I'm sick and tired of it. So I need as much help as possible. Speaking to the delegates that are out there right now, because that is where we're at in this process, is the delegation process for the nomination. For those of you that are hard set on one candidate, I ask that you take a look at everybody and realize who's going to go do the right thing for Minnesota. And that's why I'm asking for your support and for your nomination in May. We need as much help on the campaign trail for fundraisers, meet and greets, volunteers, county chairs, phone bank dialers, you name it. You can go to my website, mikemurphy4mn.com, which TC has right here on the screen, and just click the link and sign up, and somebody from my team will get a hold of you. And it might even be myself too. I do make those phone calls, or Dustin, who runs my day-to-day. But we have a grassroots army that we're creating. We have a team of volunteers all over the state and people who are upset with the way things are. And we're going to take the state back, and we're going to win Minnesota.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So this is why I like to talk to people who are running for elected servants positions. This is why I've interviewed the people who I've interviewed or had a conversation with, is because no one's telling their stories. And the people who really want your vote the most, who claim to want your vote the most, aren't willing to talk to the little guys like me. Because in their eyes, I'm a nobody. They want to talk to the big media. They want to talk to the mainstream outlets. They want to talk to the legacy newspapers and TV stations and whatnot. This is where we make a difference. Look, I'm going to echo something that Murph said, and that's, if you think you're locked into a candidate, take a look at all of them. And that's what you need to do. Look at the truth. Find out what their positions are on really important issues like the Second Amendment, like the First Amendment, like medical freedom. And just because they might be really strong on something else doesn't mean they're going to be strong on everything. You have to find that candidate that's balanced but strong on all the important issues. And so far, in all of my talking to people, when it comes to governor, there aren't a lot of people who are strong on enough of this. And what you heard today was a candidate for office, for an elected servant's position, who is strong on the right things. And he's not afraid to call a spade and to say what needs to be done. And so I would encourage you to if this isn't enough for you, go to his website, find him on Twitter, reach out to him, ask him those hard questions. When you hear a rumor, instead of spreading it, talk to him about it. That's what you need to do. Because we have to be responsible for taking back what we have resigned ourselves to giving up for so long. If you're upset with the state of Minnesota, you have no one to blame but yourself, because you have been inactive and disconnected for far too long. And to some degree, I've been very thankful for the coup and the restrictions that were put in place because of it, because it has started to awaken some people. And I think we have the ability right now to see a red wave flip this state and turn it into what it once was, and to keep it there for the good of all Minnesotans. So make sure you're checking out Mike. Make sure you know his positions, because I don't think you can reject him if you do that. Till next time, Sic Semper, Tyrannus.
Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at